All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our afternoon session. Second speaker is William Whitney. Please have your seats, take your seats and get comfortable. Not too comfortable, pay attention. All right, let me say a few words about William. William has been involved with electronics, power systems, data communications, information technology, cybersecurity, and compliance policy for over 15 years. And is considered a subject matter expert in many facets of those fields. He has a passion for technology and the future development of more efficient and safer systems. This has allowed him to become a key player in systems integration, design, and security for technology systems. William has a Bachelor of Science in Computer Information Systems and many industry certifications, including CISSP and CEH. He attends and speaks at many security and energy industry events around the nation. He is a member, chair, and co-chair of many technology advisory boards in industry groups at the private, local, and federal level. William will be talking with us today on the topic of security updates matter. Please help me welcome William Whitney.
Ready to go? All right, so just so everybody understands the format, we're going to go through a little bit of talking. We'll do some demo. I'll do a little bit more talking. And then if you have your laptop, hopefully you do. If you don't, quick, run and get it. We're going to do some hands-on demo, and you get to hack into my laptop. And so if you have a laptop or anything along those lines. If not, we'll give you the opportunity to participate with your cell phone to show you how easy things can get. You know, we can get into your systems. It's okay. So again, my name is William, and this is informal, so if you have a question or whatever, just, except for that guy right there, everybody else can throw their hand up, yell at me, whatever. Okay, so this is about patching and security updates and that annoying pop-up in the bottom of your screen that you always say that says update Adobe, update Java, update this, update that, and that nobody really does. So the question is, why do we do that? Why do we need to do that? Well, one thing is it fixes bugs and not, you know, June bugs and ants and things like that. Bugs in software, we're human, we create the software. And other people are bored and don't have anything better to do, so they find the bugs in the system that allow them to get into our systems. In doing that, we can protect our systems from being breached. That's one of the ways most people get in. And then sometimes you get better functionality, or as they call it, features, whether planned or not. So, what we're going to do, I'm going to hook up my laptop, and hopefully this works, because live demos are always scary. And I'm going to go through. I have my laptop running some virtuals, and so I can talk and bring this over at the same time. I have my system running some virtuals, and what it's running is an operating system. It's a Linux-based operating system called Kali, if you've never heard of it. And it is used by a lot of security testers. It's open source, it's free, which means if you want a copy of it, you go out there and you can find it yourself. And it's free to download. And it has lots of tools. I don't even remember the exact amount of tools it has, but hundreds and hundreds of tools. Anything from exploiting software to fuzzing to I mean, you name it, wireless penetration, it's in there. Okay, so here we go. And this is what I was telling you about. Now, within this, and the reason I do this demo is to show you how easy it is, okay? Imagine I just downloaded this. Literally, I downloaded it and I booted to it. That's as hard as it is. And then all you do to open it, you go to Applications, Kali Linux, Exploitation Tools, and Network Exploitation. And if the menu pops up, and Armitage. So for those of you that don't know, Armitage is a GUI, graphical interface, for the cool matrix-looking stuff that you normally see if you've ever heard of Metasploit. Metasploit is the, crazy text-based, you see all this crazy stuff on the movies. That's what Metasploit is like. You have to know how to do command line or shell text commands, whereas this Armitage is literally point and click. Same concept. It does all the typing for you. So what we're going to do, I have a bunch of virtuals on here, but the one we're going to go into is an XP machine, and everybody says, oh, XP? Nobody uses XP. You'd be very surprised how many machines are out there that still have XP on them. And if you think XP is safe, if you think Windows 7 is safe, it's not, because if you haven't done your patches, you can still get into it. There's exploits for it. And by the way, we'll see how many faces I get growls from. Apple is not safe either. There's lots of exploits. Linux is not safe. There's lots of exploits if you don't do your updates and configure it properly. So it's literally this easy. If I want to look what's on a network, so what I have here is I have a wireless device and a router, and I'm connected into it, and all my virtuals are on there. And if you want to show up in my little demo here, feel free to connect your phone to the Wi-Fi called Secret Service. The Secret Service really doesn't have Wi-Fi here. That's me. I.e. your airports and things, it's that easy for anybody to set up Wi-Fi in case you've never done it. I mean, so if you see Secret Service, connect to it, and the password is secret. Literally, that's the password, secret. So if you want to connect and you want to show up on this little demo, go ahead. All right, so what you can do, you can import some hosts. If you know your host name or IP address, you can just target that one. The other option is, Nmap is another well-known free tool. You can do a scan through there, through this interface. So as you can see, literally, you can look for whatever you want, and all you have to do is point and click and know the steps. People call these script kiddies, and you know the big joke, oh, a script kiddie. Well, a script kiddie can also do whatever they want to get into your system. Doesn't matter if they're a script kiddie or a nation state. I mean, they could be just as damaging because they're playing around. Should be secret. Lower. Doesn't work. Of course it doesn't, because this is a demo. And I even set the security on the wireless. It's very secure. I set it to WEP. 64. In case anybody was bored and wanted to hack into the wireless, even though I told you the password. Okay, so SSID is Secret Service, and I'll set it to secret. Actually, I think, if I remember right, with WEP you have to put in the key, right? Okay, I apologize. I should have done WPA to make life easier for everybody. So if you're at your wireless prompt, the password is C as in Charlie, 9, 3, C as in Charlie, A as in Alpha, 3, 1, Echo, Charlie, Alpha. Okay. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to literally tell it, hey, run me a Nmap Scan, and I'm just going to tell it to run a quick scan. And I know this network range. You could put in somebody's public IP address on the internet. Let me give a disclaimer. Any of this I'm showing you, I don't want you to do this on somebody else's network that you don't have permission to do it on, or on the internet. Make sure you have permission. I'm not giving you permission to take these tools out and do. Sorry, I forget to say that in the beginning, but believe it or not, it has happened before. And well, you said I could do that. No, I didn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to scan the network. So if anybody's connected, and you're going to see all my virtuals and all that good stuff. Now, if you look down at the bottom, you're going to see all that cool matrix-looking stuff that, you see hackers sitting there and they're typing away and doing crazy stuff. It just did it for me, and all I did was 3 clicks. Okay? And if my mouse cooperates with me, yes. Okay. So what's on the network right now you see up at the top here, okay? There's a few systems on here. And I just wanted to do this really quick. You can do more in-depth scanning of the systems to find out what operating system are, what services are available, for instance, web services, FTP, gaming services. It opens up ports, which allows people to come in. But what I'm going to do for this demo, and we'll play more later, but for this demo, I'm going to come in here and just find out what this IP is so that I can target this one machine. Okay, 103. So hopefully 103 shows up in this list of stuff here. It does. Okay, so I'm going to target this one machine, and I'm going to tell it to run a scan on it. So I clicked. It's doing that, all that cool matrix-looking stuff. Oh my God, I'm hacking into stuff. It's so awesome. And when it gets done, what it's doing is it's going through. It's seeing what's open, what's available, what it can connect to. Oh, look at that. It's a Windows box. How did it know that? Okay. So it scanned, it found some stuff, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come over to attacks, and I'm going to tell it to find attacks. And what it's going to do right now is it's going through its internal database of everything that's publicly known for any Windows box that's available for attacking. So for instance, if it sees port 80 open, which is a web server, it's going to look for anything that is Windows, web server, possibly even the version of web server, and anything that's ever been written, an exploit that's been written, it's going to look for that, and now I can try to run it against that. Now, like I said, this is a controlled environment. I don't have any patches on the XP box, or else this wouldn't work real well, but it's to prove the point. So as you can see on this attack, it found that this is available, this Oracle, Samba, and SMB with all these. So just by doing that quick, I mean, I'm talking and trying to draw this out, but you know, literally that could have just been done in less than a minute, and I found out everything possibly that I could hit that machine against. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do this decom exploit, and this is all that cool Metasploit crazy stuff that I told you about. I'm not even going to change anything. I'm just going to leave it default. And I click launch, and at the bottom you're seeing it's doing all that crazy stuff. And as you notice, the computer screen at the top, it turned into a cool little evil cloud, electrical red storm. So that means I have access into the system now, okay? Let me close this out. So I have access into that system. So if I right-click on here, this interpreter is what the Metasploit calls their connection into that computer after it's hacked into there. So all that's saying is, hey, I have a connection. I found a backdoor, something that was not designed to work like that. I was able to get into it. And this is all the stuff that you can now do. So on that XP box, imagine that computer is your home computer. And I just hit that because you didn't install this update. So I can escalate my privileges, I can steal tokens, I can dump your hashes, which are your passwords. I can set up a persistent connection, so if you try to reboot or lose power, I can get back into it. I can pass the session to someone else. I can interact with you. I can open up a command shell or a command prompt, an interpreter shell, which is the same thing as a kind of a command prompt. I can do VNC, so I can control your screen. Explore. I can look at your files, I can show everything you're running, I can log your keystrokes, I can take a screenshot, I can take a shot of your webcam, hopefully you're clothed on your phone. So pivoting that's kind of something cool. I can install something on your computer, and then I can use your computer to connect to other computers. So I don't have to, and there's a couple of reasons that's important. If it's a business network, you might have a connection to somewhere else that the computer I hacked into doesn't. And so I can use your computer to get to that other network. The other reason it's important is if I've already gotten into your computer, I don't want anybody seeing traffic going from me to you or me to other machines, so I can use you, and you're the one hacking into everybody, not me. So nobody sees that as traffic going on unless you're actually seeing unless you're monitoring internal traffic, which most places do not. So here's an example. I'm going to come over here real quick, and this is that XP machine we were talking about. And so I'm just going to, I don't know, type something here so that you can see it's live, and go back to my Kali Linux. And I'm going to ask it to please give me a screenshot. Sorry, my mouse is horrible on this thing. Okay, I'm going to ask it to please give me a screenshot without typing anything. Remember, all I've been doing is clicking. And literally the stuff I've been doing, you can do in less than a minute if you're not up here having to ramble. So there's your screenshot of that other computer. Okay? Now another thing we're going to do, so you're like, oh, screenshot, who cares about a screenshot? So we're going to come in here, and we're going to tell it to log the keystrokes. Okay? And it went through, and by the way, when I click that, what it's doing is it's actually running the exploits against it. It's saying, I've run the exploit, I've got into it, so now I'm going to run modules in the background that allow me to do these kind of things. So as you notice at the bottom of that screen, it says recording keystrokes, right? Okay, let's go over to here, and we're going to write this conference is awesome. My password is password, because nobody would ever do that. And come back over here and scroll down to this little screen. See the bottom of the screen? This conference is awesome. My password is password. So imagine you were opening up a web browser. These aren't connected to the internet, or I could show you, but imagine you were connecting to your bank and you typed in your username and password. Nothing on this system looks any different. I'm just using my computer, surfing the web, doing this, doing that. This is what you can get information to if these updates are not being done. And so it's that simple. So this is the patch for this system, for that one exploit that we did. So this is the patch for it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to run this patch on this. And as it's running that patch, I'm going to come into here, and I am going to remove this host. Okay, that's successfully installed. And that's just one patch. We all know that there's lots of patches out there. We'll try to remove this again. Please. It's also uninstalling and removing all the bad stuff that it put on it, because it's nice like that. The hackers aren't nice like that. Okay. Let's see if it'll let me go into it. So if I try to attack it now, we go down to here. If this live demo works correctly, it should not exploit it, which means we won't get that awesome looking evil red thing going on, which at the bottom you'll see it's done. So it's a very simple example of what I showed you. Let me move this over real quick. So what I showed you there, it's a very, very, very simple example. I mean, it's a controlled environment, it's Windows XP. Yes, I understand all that for people that know what they're doing out here. But even though that's a simple example, I also have a Windows 7 box on here for the demo later that people want to play. I mean, Windows 7 has exploits. I can't show you Apple because it's illegal for me to load Apple onto a virtual, and I didn't bring my Mac with me. There's Linux on here. purposely unsecure. Now, don't get me wrong. There's ways to secure it, but there's always going to be people that find ways to get into your systems to open the holes. Like I said, it takes time and resources. You know, especially in businesses, it's hard because you have certain systems that maybe can't go down or don't want to go down, or possibly bad patches, or you have compliance that you have to deal with, and you have to test before you can apply those patches. And security's a pain. But if you don't do it, you take the risk of these kind of things happening. Even in your home, these kind of things can happen. It takes one. All I showed you was one patch. I mean, I don't know if you realize how many patches are available. I mean, I loaded up a Windows 7 box the other day with an original disk, and I think I had to load 4 or 5 hours worth of patches. There was like 2,000 of them. I mean, Java, everybody uses Java on their systems. Everybody uses Adobe Reader. I mean, they all have patches. So when you see those pop-ups, even on your home computers, do the updates. So like I said, anybody can do it. It's called Kali Linux. You can download it. Nmap and Kali Linux are the two that if you want to play with them, like I said, don't do it on your work network. Don't do it on your neighbor's network. Don't hack your neighbors, or you'll get in trouble. It's very easy. There's something called VirtualBox. You can load up some virtuals. There's images online you can download. There's even purposely open systems like Hackademia or Damn Vulnerable Linux. There's a lot of other, just look for vulnerable virtual images, and you can have a full test environment. So this is interesting, and I'm sorry I need to put the year on here. I didn't do that, but I want to say it was 2013, the Verizon data breach report, and they do a... Oh, it's not going. Okay, that's good. Let's see, make sure. So there's slides going on, and nobody told me that I didn't have slides up. Come on, everybody's supposed to know what's going on here. So anyways, there's slides. When they come back up, you'll see what I was talking about. But I believe it was 2013, Verizon data breach report. Verizon every year works with Secret Service, FBI, Royal Mounted Canadian Police, if I got that right. A lot of different people they work with. And these are only the people that report the data breaches. And what they said was 97% of data breaches could have been prevented if the updates were done. Yeah. So updates being done and SQL injection are the two easiest things to fix, but one of the largest problems we have. 2015 has the same statement. So, I mean, it's still going on. And like I said, it's a pain. It is. I have to go through it myself. But you take that risk. Do you want to spend a little bit of time and resources to patch your systems so that somebody else doesn't get in and your name's not in the paper? Or do you want to, thank you. Or do you want to be hacked? Here we go. 97% of data breaches could have been avoided through simple or intermediate controls such as patching, password complexity, and things along those lines. And what I wanted to do, and I need to add this to this presentation, I wanted to give you some pointers for those of you that don't do this every day, or even if you do it every day, we all tend to forget the basics, okay? And I do this. So I'm not just standing here saying, oh, do this. I actually do this. Don't run as administrator. I know you think you are superpowers, but don't run as administrator. My laptop, that's not my laptop. My laptop does not run as an administrator. When I need to install something, it pops up and says, hey, you don't have rights to do this. The reason is because if you visit a website or you click on a link in email, in a spam link, if you're an administrator, the computer is on, it's not magic. It says, the program says, hey computer, I would like to install this. Computer says, oh, let me look and see. Yes, I'm logged in as an administrator. Yes, go ahead and install whatever you want, feel free. I mean, it's only as smart as what it's programmed. So run as a regular user, that's the first step. Second step is your patches. So if you do click on a link in an email, or you visit a website that's malicious, it's going to first look and see, hey, will you install this for me? Computer's going to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't install that because I'm a regular user. Here, let me do a pop-up and ask for the admin password. And then you're going to go, why is my thing popping up for admin? The second thing it's going to check is it's going to check and see, are you vulnerable? Do you not have that patch installed on there? Are you missing that last Java update or that last Adobe Reader update? Oh, you are? Oh, let me do what just happened here. And then they're in. And once they're in, they're in. And you'll never know about it unless they make a mistake. Lots of companies should have things in place, but sometimes even when they have things in place, you might have the tools in place, but you don't have the resources and people in place. It's not going to throw an alert. Okay, so another thing is wireless networks. So on top of getting spam, the wireless network, the reason that I wanted to do this, have everybody connect into here, is so you could see, I can scan your system. There's a cool tool, and I don't know if they're, I have no affiliation with them, I just use them, but there's one called Fing, F-I-N-G. It's kind of a cool little tool. I use it specifically for when I go to hotels or event centers or things like that, because what I'll do is I'll open it and I'll run it, and what it does, it goes on the network and it says, how many other devices can I see on the network? If it comes back and it only sees me and maybe the access point that I'm connected to, I'm happy. That's a start of security. But if it comes back and I see everybody's equipment on there, that means that hotel or event center didn't do their job and set up their security properly on their wireless, because it should be set up to isolate. There's no reason people on a public network need to talk to each other. And you'd be surprised if you use that tool, F-I-N-G, on your phone, whatever, how many times you'll go somewhere and you'll pull up 100 different devices on there. So if you can see those devices, guess what you can do to those devices? Right here, what I showed you, free tools, less than a minute, you can pop every one of those devices if they don't have their updates on them. Okay, so another thing I was going to throw out there, and these are just little nuggets of info, is when you install software, and this is one of the biggest reasons that uneducated users should not run as administrator. I want a piece of software. We're going to pick on Java. Sorry, Oracle. Okay, I need to install Java. Java.com, click on Java download, it does its thing, click next. If I'm a regular user that doesn't pay attention, I'm just next, 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 next. Come on, I gotta get going and do what I need to do. Guess what happens on that second prompt of the Java install? Would you like to install ask.now? Would you like to install McAfee security scanner? Would you like to install Joe Blow's whatever scanner that's gonna go to Russia and China and steal all your data? Make sure you're unchecking all that stuff. That's an important thing to know. So, like I said, patch all your devices. I know it's a pain. On our other stuff, it's, personal stuff, it's not that hard. Go in there, yeah, do your updates. Businesses are a little tougher, but we all need to work harder to do that. For the business professionals in here, we really need to work hard at that to make sure we limit admin rights, even for ourselves, because we get going a million miles an hour and we might click the wrong thing and we're in trouble. I've been there. I reload my computer about 4 times a year. So at this point, what we're going to do, for anybody that brought their laptop, awesome. I brought some live USB and some live DVDs. If you want to load them in, I promise you they're not virus-ridden or whatever. Literally, I just loaded them up in the lobby, and what they contain is a bootable version of Linux, of Kali. And you put it in, it ignores everything else on your system, and it loads that up. And you can connect to this hotspot I have here and to all my virtuals, and we can go through it and beat the thing up and see if we can make it start on fire and crash. For those of you in here that have experience in this, you can be my helper. And we're going until 3:25. Okay, so we're going to have 25 minutes of playtime. So I don't know if you want to cut the recording or not, because we're just going to be playing in here for 25 minutes. I'm I have these up here. Otherwise, I'll stay up here. Everybody can come up here, ask questions. We'll do question and answer in just a second before we do all that. But then when we're done with that, we can all come up to a table or something, and we'll do everything together, and we'll hack into a bunch of stuff. If anybody's willing to have their phones out there, we'll see what we can do on those and kind of get some hands-on and see how these systems actually work and interact and how easy it is to get into systems. And you can play as well. You play with the laptops and do whatever you want to do. But from there, does anybody have any questions, comments, except for that guy right there? And don't be afraid to ask. I want to say something. There's no stupid questions, okay? Because if you don't ask it, you're not going to know. And in this room, no matter what question you ask, nobody's going to laugh or think anything less of you because I'll kick them out of here. Go ahead.
In that case, now, seriously, so this is more from a home user perspective, right? So patching, I tell all people all the time, patch, etc. But you know, am I wrong with this? As you know, there are all sorts of malware and all sorts of, or not malware, but advertisements that'll pop up and say, you need to patch your system. So for a home user, right, I know the business side, but for a home user, what would you recommend to folks in order to validate? Is there a way for a home user to validate, other than this, but for them to practically validate what patches they actually need versus what's coming up?
So in past years, that was a much harder question to answer. Nowadays, it's a little bit easier. There are companies out there that offer this kind of service. Like one of them, I think, is Night, and there's some stuff like that. And what they do is you install it on your system, and they keep everything up to date on your system. Everything. I mean, Windows, iTunes, Adobe Reader, you name it. It keeps it up to date. And for every system, iOS, Linux, it'll do them all. As of late, things have been getting better. I think vendors are starting to realize that they need to become more responsible for this. So for instance, if you have a Windows box, you set it to do your updates, 3 a.m. every day, and it does them. Same thing I've noticed. Adobe products now have, when you install, would you like us to automatically update your systems when an update comes out? So vendors, manufacturers are starting to smarten up to this. But like you said, you got to be careful. If you see a pop-up that says, warning, you have 12 million viruses, and if you don't click on this now, you're going to die. I mean, yeah, you got to be careful about that. The safest way to do your updates is to actually open your application. In most applications, you go to the About or the Help, and the drop-down will have check for updates. And I mean, that's one of the big things too. Don't forget about your antivirus software. So you might have antivirus, but if you're not updating it, most of them will update definitions automatically, but it's not a bad idea to go in there every once in a while and tell it check for updates, because it might have some major updates that the system won't automatically update unless you manually go in there. So security's a pain. I don't know if computers are supposed to help, but we'll come to a point where either we'll find the magic key to make things work, or we'll go back to paper and pen. I don't know. But it's tough. It is. It really is. And running as an admin, running as a regular user and not admin is tough. It's annoying. It's gotten better. Windows 7, Windows XP, the last 2 versions of iOS, it's much better to where if you want to install something, it just pops up and says, well, what's your admin password? Whereas like Windows XP, you had to know, press shift, right click, run as, and do all that, or else it would just say, you don't have permissions. Don't talk to me. It's getting better, but we're still working to get there. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Nothing's been thrown at me. That's an awesome thing.
I have one. What's your opinion on super anti-spyware for malware cleaning? And is there any alternatives better than that for freeware for users?
Okay, so you get what you pay for. Are you going to willingly go to your neighbor and mow his lawn for him just because you want to? I mean, it's one of those things. So I used to be a big advocate of Symantec. Oh, I love Symantec. And then I moved to, oh, well, Microsoft's, what is that free thing Security Essentials. I was like, oh yeah, it's free. It's from Microsoft. It's got to be good, right? Well, guess what? I started getting stuff and running malware bites, and I noticed stuff was coming in. So if you're not willing to spend the money, sure, go with the free ones. Malware bites, that's a pretty decent one. It has some free stuff. Like you said, the Super Cleaner, was it? Super Cleaner. Yeah. I mean, I think Kaspersky has a free version. There's a lot of free AVG or Panda or something. There's a lot of them. So yeah, if you're not going to pay, if you're not willing to pay for it, at least put a free one. But I would highly recommend to pay for it because you get what you pay for. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. I mean, yes, we're all going to volunteer here and there, but nobody's going to have a full-fledged product and keep up with it. Because remember, viruses come out every day. But that's a biggie, is to have that on there. And I mean, that's the thing. It's free. It's going to do what it needs to do. Run at your own risk. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Don't be scared. Is everybody asleep? Do I need to do jumping jacks? Yes, no? Okay. Oh, we got one.
Are you starting to see more third-party software vendors be aware of the security state of the computer and not lower all the settings by default everywhere?
Yes, but here's where the problem comes into play. I don't care. They can sue me if they want. We'll take Dell for an example, or HP, or Gateway, or whoever else. You buy a computer. You get it. Yay, I start using it. I can do whatever I want on it. They're not securing your computer for you. Why? Because if they put an admin account and a user account and told you to log in as a user, every time you went to use it, you'd call their tech support and say, hey, I can't make this work. So it's a lot easier for the vendors to go least privilege, but like Java, right? So I'm getting on Java. So their latest version of Java that came out, I've noticed, as you're installing it, has a little pop-up box and says, would you like to set all your security settings back to default? And so you can do that, but here's where I've run into problems. And it might not be like this for regular home users, but when you're connecting into a lot of different things and doing some weird stuff, things just don't work. And you get frustrated and you want to throw it across the room, and then you're like, oh, it's using Java. Oh, I have to go into the Java settings and click security and then click exceptions and then click add exceptions and then type in the IP address of that exception. And don't just click enter. You have to hit add and then apply and then OK. So yeah, they're trying, but it's a constant battle for them, for the vendors too, because if they amp up security, then it's going to be harder to use. So somebody somewhere has to have that magical key that makes everything work the way it's supposed to and be secure. You know, like even you know, Linux is pretty secure by default, but there's a lot of things you have to go in there and do. And I mean, even if you, so say you load up Ubuntu and you're like, yeah, Ubuntu works great, but you want to make something work. I mean, you have to know how to go in and change the firewall to make it work. Most regular users aren't going to, and I think that's why it hasn't picked up. You know, the same thing with the Macs. I mean, it's a lot of people are used to the Windows environment. It's been around for so long. So then you go to a Mac, and yeah, it works until it doesn't work, and then you have to know how to make those changes. So, and yes, Google's your friend. You can always go and type it in and figure it out. But yeah, I mean, it's a constant battle and stuff. But I have seen them increasing security. They have to. I mean, look at in the last year. I forgot the statistics on it, but I mean, everybody knows. You've heard it on the news. You've heard it in the talks that have gone on in here. You know, everything from power companies to gas companies to big box retailers to video game companies. What was it? Christmas Eve, something like that. I don't know, Cameron. When couldn't you get on the video game network? I mean, they shut it down. They hacked into it, and they knew everybody was going to be home, so they said, boom, we're going to shut it down Christmas Eve when everybody's home trying to play video games and nobody could get on. And it's simple things. I forgot what it was. I think it was either an unpatched version of a web server or SQL injection. It was something very simple that allowed them to get in and do this. You know, a lot of people are targeting the higher level CEOs too, because, and that's another thing for the professionals, somehow we need to bring back to your company, sorry if you're CEO here, I'm about to hurt your feelings, but you are no better than anybody else. You don't get admin rights because you don't know what you're doing. And that's very important. And I know you can't just go up to your CEO and be like, hey dude, you don't know what you're doing, so shut up. Because they'll probably fire you. But somehow tactfully, we have to get people understanding that in order to keep our systems secure, we understand you're the CEO and you're very important and we all love you, but we have to keep our systems secure. And in order to do that, you have to operate just like everybody else does in the company. And that's another big thing too. Anybody else? Questions? Comments?
I was just going to say that when you were talking about having to install software and you have to click and put your admin credentials in there, just never use a domain admin or anything like that, like a server admin account. Use local admin, because as soon as you use that, it's like a full Windows login, like you did your login screen, and you're now susceptible to pass the hash attacks.
Yep, absolutely. So when you go to install something, that program, hopefully it's trusted and hopefully they don't have any rogue programmers, but whenever you install that program, it then has those credentials forever. Whatever it wants to do, it can do with those because you put them in there. Yeah, that's a very important thing. And you know, hello? Okay. The funny thing is too with installing software, I can't remember what company it was or when it was, but it was the joke about nobody ever reads all that legal stuff in there. So every once in a while I get bored and I'm like, oh, I'm going to scroll through it before I install. So it's funny because last night, as I was prepping to do these USB sticks, I wanted to try out a new software. So I looked at it and I was reading through it because it's kind of a sketchy piece of program. Everybody said it was safe, but it looked sketchy to me. And I was reading through it, and at the bottom of it had some, you know, where it put people's names. It wasn't anybody's names. It was like Big Bird and Mickey Mouse and weird stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm not even going to try to mess with this. But there was a company, and if anybody remembers, yell it out. But at the end of they call it a EULA, something license agreement, end user license agreement, there we go. They put in the bottom of it, like 2 sentences up, if anybody reads this and you send an email to this email address, we will send you a check of $1 million or $10,000 or something like that. Nobody ever did it. And it was a legitimate company. It wasn't a fake company. It was a real company. Look it up on everything you read on the internet is true, right? So look it up. But no, it really did happen. It was in their EULA, and it was at the bottom where they know nobody would ever read. And it wasn't all the way at the bottom. It was like 3 sentences up. And it said, if you send an email to this email address, we will cut you a check for this. Never got an email.
Did you hear the one where there's like Game Station, and then their EULA that said that you gave up all your rights to your eternal soul?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard about that.
No one read that?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the other thing, too, is when you're installing software, it's kind of like giving people the keys to your house. You know, I know it's not your house, but it's all your data. It's everything you do. And as you saw, I mean, if you install something, you're then giving them not the right, the capability, if they're a bad programmer, to do everything I showed you, get screenshots, key log to get your username and passwords. You might never even know it happens. So, anything else? Questions, comments?
The application that you just showed us what's strictly one-on-one. What scares the heck out of me as a professional is how many million teenagers know about this and not to go for this stuff.
Right. Well, and that's the thing about it. That's why it's important that a lot of us are involved in the high schools and teaching kids about this, because they're the next generation that's going to take care of all this for us, and they need to understand how detrimental it can be to systems. Yeah, like you said, this is 101, literally. I mean, you saw what I did. I downloaded it. Well, I didn't. I downloaded it last night because it was like 3 gig, but downloaded it, booted it up, click, 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 scan, click, 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 boom, I'm in. Now in the real world, it's not going to be that easy. It's going to be a little tougher than that. But essentially, if you were in a hotel that didn't have a protected network and they had a controller, or say their AC unit for some reason was on there, remember the Target breach in the news? Guess how they got into there? The HVAC, the heating and air conditioning system. That's how they got into Target. So they stole your credit card numbers by hacking into the air conditioning and heating system. So it's not that far off, but I don't want to tell you, here, take this laptop and you can go hack everybody's computer. It's that easy. It can be that easy if people don't do what they're supposed to. But yes, the kids, it's important, and there's a big push in the high schools teaching cybersecurity and things along those lines. And a lot of the things that I do too, it wasn't on the title for here for some reason, but I think it's on this one, but it wasn't on the main thing. Here's the thing. It's kind of like social media and the movies. Everything's like, ooh, I want to do this. If I say to a kid, hey, let me teach you cybersecurity, they're like, whatever. If I'm like, hey, you want to go hack into a computer, check this out. So you got to play the game, but then once you reel them in and they learn what it's really about, kind of like this morning if you were in the talk with Secret Service about all the different things that have happened, because people don't think about that. Us in the security profession, we think about things because we have to deal with it all the time. But in the real world, nobody thinks about all the criminals and people stealing stuff and how it hurts everybody's lives. Nobody really thinks about it unless it happens to you. So I think it's important to get the kids involved. So if you haven't already done it, there's a lot of things out there between SANS and the local schools and things along those lines. And you can always get a hold of me. I got a bunch of different groups that training in the schools is important. Because even if they don't do it as a profession, if they take the classes and they understand it and they share it with their friends, they're going to learn they might learn the bad stuff behind it, but they're also going to learn the security stuff. And here's my thing. I do a lot of free training at home and in different places and sharing information, because here's my concept behind it. If I teach you how not to click on a link in an email, by the way, I forgot to say it for those of you that might not know, in an email, hover over the link and look in the bottom left or a pop-up or something, and make sure when it says click here to go to Bank of America, make sure that it says bankofamerica.com, not bankof-america.com. That's how they're getting everybody. So don't just click. You don't have to click on it to see what it is. Just hover over it and pay attention to either what pops up or what's in the bottom. It'll show you the address that it's sending you to. That's very important to remember, and that's a big one. And so that's what I'm saying. If we can all just teach somebody, even if we think it's the most simple. This year, I did this once, and I thought, wow, this is really stupid. People are going to think I'm lame because I'm up here showing them how to use, Armitage to hack into a system. You know how many people on my first conference came up to me and said, oh my God, I didn't know I could do that, and wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize how important doing the updates really were. And I was like, I do it every day. I think it's simple. Not everybody else thinks about it because they have other things to do. So, do you have a question?
Pay attention to what the kids tell you, too. The daughter mentioned she saw a spreadsheet with everybody's password for the network at school. I made the phone call. That starts their investigation.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even were aware of it because the daughter let something slip walking by.
Yep, absolutely. And we don't have time for the big brother state and watch what everybody's doing at all times. I mean, we all have stuff to do, but if we take those simple steps to prevent it, then we'll be okay. Any more questions, comments?
One more comment, editorially. It would seem to me that as hacking becomes more prevalent, more especially in children, but maybe even down as early as elementary school, it's not that ethics.
Mm-hmm.
As we get brainwashed
Right, the ethics side, what you can, and what is to do, what's right to do and what's wrong to do. That's definitely something that needs to be out there and is important. And as we go through I mean, it's education. It really is. I mean, everybody just goes along their day, does their thing, and I had a guy the other day. You know, he said, my phone's not working right, and I said, well, I try to run the updates on it. He says, it takes too long. He had like iOS 4 on it or something. It's like, oh my God. But think about it, iOS 4, okay. If it never connects to Wi-Fi, he might be okay. If he never clicks on a link, he might be okay. But goes to a hotel or an event center, connects to wireless, and they don't have their security correct, well, guess what's going to happen? They're going to pop him, and he's never going to know it. I mean, even with your cell phones, think about cell phones. They're just an operating system. So there's even exploits out there that if you're on a wireless network and I get into your phone, you don't know, you're like, hey mom, what's going on? You know, talking to whoever. And I'm in your system, I can pull all your contacts, I can pull all your messages, I can pull all your pictures. I'm looking for people's faces in here. They're saying, what? I mean, I know I'm up here whining about updates, but it really is important. And for each person that we can help spread this to, it's one step closer that, here's my corny phrase, one step closer we are to protecting our nation. Because what happens is people hack into systems and they'll just take your system and hold it. They won't do anything mean to it. They won't steal your information. They won't do anything to it until the day comes along and they're mad at the U.S. government and they say, okay, I want my 9 million computers that I've hacked into to all wake up and I want you all to attack the U.S. military's website. Boom, they just took it down. So your computer might be hacked and you'll never even know it. And even after that attack, you might not know it. You know, going back to your point, one of the things that I've always pushed, growing up on TV, I remember PSAs. You know, the more you know, don't talk to strangers, Smokey the Bear. You know, we had all that. Everybody knew, you know, what you were and weren't supposed to do because it was just ingrained into you. I have no idea, and I've talked to people at the White House that I deal with. I've talked to people from DHS, FBI, and I always tell them, I'm like, hey, technology is everything now. I said, nobody can live without their phone or computer or anything. I said, if it's so important, why don't we do PSAs like we did back then over something, I don't want to say less important, but how little forest fires there really were in comparison to how many computers are getting hacked today and how much we depend on it. Yes, don't get me wrong, forest fires are very bad and bad things can happen, but think about the percentage of damage that happened with forest fires or children getting stolen versus the percentage of people getting their identity stolen, computers hacked, Twitter accounts, pictures, celebrities' pictures plastered all over the place that shouldn't be plastered over the place. I mean, think about the percentage, but yet we're not doing PSAs on TV saying, hey, by the way, when you get an email and it's a link, hover over it and just look here or there. How hard is that? Come on. So any of you that have any contacts, please pass that along. PSA, cybersecurity, and don't make it difficult to understand like this whole matrix thing and don't do this because this could happen. Just say, hover over an email, over the link in the email, look for the address, make sure it says bankofamerica.com, not bankofamerica-.com. We could probably solve, I'm pulling this number out of you know where, but probably solve 90% of the problems with all this hacking if we could just teach the basics to people. So, I mean, it proves in the Verizon data breach report. And that's with businesses. Businesses 97%, by the way. That Verizon data breach report, I don't think took into account home users. So if businesses can't even protect themselves and they have trained professionals there, you know, you get my point. Any other questions or comments because we're getting down to the line? So here's what we're going to do because surprisingly this actually went longer than I thought it was going to. I'm going to be out front. And so if you want to do any more cool stuff or ask any questions that you were too afraid to ask in here, just come see me. I'll be out front by the registration tables, and we'll play. I will let you hack something if you want to. Just come out there, and I appreciate you all being here, and please take back any of that information and share it. That's the biggest thing, information sharing. If we can share with everybody, I know it's corny. If we can share the information, you will make the world a better and safer place.